welcome back to the Promoted Podcast. I'm your host, Felicity Fury, CEO of We Aspire, and I'm joined by the incredible Renee Wooten. I was going to say CEO of something, but that isn't your title, Renee. But yeah, let's just make you the CEO of something today. You are a global leader in aviation, speaker, aerospace engineer, pilot, all the things. And now your new role, I'm so pumped about at LanzaJet. You are in a global role, which is super duper exciting. I'm having like starstruck aura over this side of the camera. Thanks so much for being here. Wanya, welcome. I'm on Gubby Gubby country today. Where are you dialing in from, Renee?
Well, I love the intro and thank you so much. And I'm just as starstruck about my own life as you are. So, and all of them, we love it. Nagabi Bagilanjana Nangang Ring Wooten, Jaibul Guli, Naranang, Nalamanyang Nai, Garmin Moringa Dawalanga. Greetings and how are you all? My name is Renee Wooten. I acknowledge that I'm gathered on the land of the Jaibul people and I'm speaking to you in Dharawal. It's been a pretty crazy month, Felicity. I got a new job. We did the Bossio Executives Award. I think, what's exceptional about this moment in time is I'm living out my dream in contributing to decarbonising the aviation industry, making sure our planet is sustainable for the future. So
I love it. It's been a wild ride being part of the journey with you, Renee. I feel like, all the way back 10 years ago, plus probably since when we met, to actually seeing you on this dream of creating sustainable aviation fuel. I feel like we're in the future just even saying that that's a thing that a company does to work on. So it's amazing that you get to do this global role from Toowoomba, just regional Queensland, loving it. We're both in regional Queensland because I'm on the sunny coast. And today we've got a really cool question that's come into my DMs, which I'm going to read out to make sure that I get it right. It's all around the expectations of a role. Is perfection too much to ask for? So me, I am absolutely one of those perfectionist people. Having children has helped me with my perfectionism trait, but it's something I really struggle with. And there's an extra piece here around the perspective of this question. So people grumble when there are issues. People inherently expect a role just to be a role without all the other issues that arise. Let's break the myth and normalize this messiness. So I've absolutely had that. And I think my consulting background, you got to kind of jump in and just do everything. Clients want things. You obviously need to manage scope, but often I feel like it's almost like a mindset that I've had that you kind of like, I don't even look at role descriptions most time. I'm like, okay, I'm here to kind of create this outcome, whatever that takes. And I've certainly been in teams where I've had people on that bus with me, and also in teams where people go, that's not in my job description. And sometimes that's been quite shocking for me because I go, that is like a really bizarre mindset to have. Sometimes there are advantages that I can see because it's people really clearly setting those boundaries. And I think for myself personally, I probably have gone too far in the past, overstepping those boundaries. But what's it been like for you, Renee? How do you take this question of the expectations when is a role just a role or is it more than a role?
Yeah, it's a really great question. So thank you for asking it, Felicity. I think my take on this is really, people read a job description and they go, right, my job is to do the data analytics and reporting for this thing. And, I will have to present that work once a month to these people. And that's the extent of my job. It's what's listed in the job description, and that's what I have been paid to do. And then all of a sudden, you've got to think about leadership. You've got to think about solving other team members' problems. You've got to think about maybe changing the expectations and requirements of the role in ways because that's the priority of the business at the time. And so all of a sudden, and I think this comes back to good change management. If you give people the warning to say, hey, things might change, and here's how it can impact you, maybe it's easier to digest. But what I find and why I think this is such an important conversation to have today is because people grumble so often, I find, when, they have to take on these extra pieces of work or things weren't written in their job description and they're not prepared to do it or, things just come up and there's complexities. We're human. We've evolved from apes. So we are animalish. Things are complicated and we try and put structure around things and make it easier for people to digest and to understand what is needed from them. But people also forget that things change quickly, particularly in today's world. I think, if you rewind 20 years, globalization was not nearly as big. Complexity of projects wasn't nearly as big. We really focused our lens of work in a local region or maybe a regional area, but we never really had to think about globalization on the scale that we do today, which means that things are messier inherently today than they've ever been. It means change occurs so much quicker than it used to. Means, people personalize are bombarded by constant information or complexity and trying to juggle multiple things. Never have we ever been in a time where the expectation to get ahead financially and to make something of yourself is you have 2 jobs and are building a and having a family and it's just so how do you bring about comfort and calmness as a leader? Because at the end of the day, no matter who you have in your team, they are juggling the same level of complexity and peer pressure and stereotypes and biases in their personal and professional lives. A job is no longer a job. And we've also opened this incredible door of speaking about mental health and having, really transparent conversations around how are you today? Are you doing well? We know inherently that people do bring their personal lives to work these days. How can we read a job description and expect that that is all we're ever going to need to be able to do? I think another really great call out is that job descriptions never have, you must be a great leader. Here's what great leadership looks like. We have a culture here. You're expected to contribute to that culture in these ways. You're going to have direct reports and they're going to bring their personal issues to work. So you need to be able to manage their personal lives as well as their professional, and every individual leader is going to have a different approach in how they manage these things. But I think I just really want to bust this myth that your job is your job, because it's not at all the case. Your job is so much more than just the technical requirements of delivering a product. It really is about looking after people. It's about emulating culture and contributing to it. It's about, caring for people and trying to understand them innately so that you can provide support to them that's unique to them, that is personalized to them, that is important for them. And, through my inclusion and diversity role that I've just come from, that's actually really core to, the training that we received is lean into uncomfortable conversations. Get or normalize having uncomfortable conversations, because that's going to lead you to be able to tailor the support you provide. It's going to help you, unlock and truly understand who is in your team and what's unique to them. And, I think that we're at this really incredible point, particularly I think in my line of work and perhaps in yours, Felicity. And I don't think that this is widespread at all. I think that some companies, some industries are lagging behind and are trying to make that leap to normalize diversity, and whether that's in the form of age, gender, culture, whatever it might be, stepping away from these inherent stereotypes of this person's different because of their skin color and therefore I'm going to not engage because their beliefs might be very different to mine, or I don't know how to have a conversation with this person because they're so different to me. How do we come into the workplace and be open-minded? How do we come into the workplace and be flexible and adapt to all of the facets of what it means to be a human? Because it's not just about a job anymore. It's about managing humans.
Yes. It's so tricky. And I love that. Like, there's this saying that I've heard one of my amazing mentors, Belinda, first shared this concept with me, and I've seen it time and time again. It used to be there was work and there was life. Then there was work-life balance, and then there was work-life integration. And I feel like we're at that point where the circles are so crossed over now, where it's work is life, life is work. And there is a huge expectations on companies now. I think particularly given that and I think Simon Sinek talks a lot about this, we don't have those community spaces anymore. We move a lot. We don't stay in the same community. Previously, there might have been a local community group or a local church group or your close family buy that we have this network of people. And now we're stepping away from that. And I feel like, rightly or wrongly, there's a huge expectation on companies to provide that pastoral care, that community, that space, that mental health. And the list just goes on and on and on. And I think it's really difficult and challenging for companies today to be able to navigate all of that. And who has to implement that? It's going to be the frontline leaders, the first time leaders, those middle managers. We're the ones that have to actually put this in place and implement it. And I think often it comes down to like there are actual regulatory requirements now. If you look at things like the WGEA reporting, if you have more than 100 people in your company, it's mandatory reporting. There's now the regulation around being proactive around, I'm going to make sure I get the word right. I've just had a baby brain moment of what was the word around being proactive on, like not discrimination. What is it? Totally forgotten the word.
And I get to.
It's the psychological safety, being proactive to keep. So safety is not just safety on a construction site or on the airfield. Safety is actually that psychological safety. And I think all of that stuff is really important and really valid. And at the same time, I think it can also be tricky for people because you might be dealing with stuff in your personal life. You could have a young family. You might not be sleeping. Could be caring for parents who have, dementia, Parkinson's, are sick, are unwell. You might have so many things going on, or even in our situation, we don't have any family close by to help look after the kids. All of these things, you might be stressed and not sleeping. So I think it's a lot to put on people. I agree. Like we should be thinking about this stuff outside of people's roles. And also I think it comes down to a couple of things to ask yourself. It is, how am I going? What are my expectations of myself? How can I fit in all of these things into my role? The first thing is that awareness piece, which I think you've highlighted so well, Renee, in explaining that. And you might be in a situation in your life where you might not have capacity to do that. But I think the important thing can be to acknowledge it and work with your leader to figure out how you can fit that in. Because at the end of the day, that pastoral care, that caring for people still needs to be part of your role. And I'm just thinking personally, like when I've been working with a young family or having one child and being pregnant, it was so hard for me to do all of the things. And so there were situations where I went, I'm choosing to step back and choosing to do a smaller role or a different role at work because I need to make all of these other things happen. And luckily, within We Aspire, we're a team. So I spoke to my business partner about that. He took over some of that care for our team while I said, hey, look, I don't have that capacity. So I think the important thing is to really acknowledge that all of these things are part of your role. Even if you're in a team, that would be an exceptional team member to go, hey, that's part of your role. And someone's going to be needing to do that work. And then the other piece to it too is thinking about where are you going and who do you want to be? I think another grumble that I hear a lot from people, particularly young leaders or people wanting to come up through the ranks is, oh, I'm not given the opportunity to do this, or, oh, that's outside my role, or they're not going to give me a promotion until I'm doing the role, but they should see my potential and give me the role and then I'll do it. The best way to get a promotion and to stand out is do the role before you get that. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Renee, but I see that time and time again, that people are wanting their responsibilities. But if you just demonstrate that, that goes such a long way for your managers. What do you think, Renee? Am I throwing a spanner in the works here?
Not at all. And I think, again, it comes back to if you're going, and I want to be careful in the way that I explain this because I don't think you should always be acting up, right? I don't think that you should be acting up because you should be paid for the skills and the contribution that you make. However, I do think that there are opportunities for you to shine and to step up when there is a need in the business. So for instance, let's say your manager goes on leave, you can put your hand up and say, hey, I would love to build these skills. And so I want to cover this piece of work while they're absent. Let's say it's a short-term opportunity, take it, because then that demonstrates you want to make a step up. You're willing to contribute when things are hard. And that means you're really dependable and people trust you and can see that you have potential. And that's what you're sometimes trying to demonstrate. And I would have to say, I think I've applied for a couple of roles, but the things that have gotten me noticed is the fact that, I am trying to make a difference for other people. I'm trying to give back to community. I'm also delivering the work that I was set to do. And I think when people can see that you can manage multiple things and you're doing things well, that's when they, great, I've got this person in mind and that's where I want to see them excel. But yeah, to your point, I actually want to make a call out here for corporate, for anybody that's, listening in today. And that is, when you're thinking about building a job description, I think the awareness piece and the support or the ecosystem of things that brings together that role also needs to be called out in a job description. And I know that, we can, today I've seen job descriptions that have, you must contribute to the company culture, these values, and you must do this technical job. But I think there also needs to be a piece around you're going to be expected to lead in these ways. Leadership is no longer just delivering projects. It's also leading humans and the community that buys into that. And again, I think that will then normalize when people have to step into those jobs and really play that role on top of the technical role. At least they have the awareness that that's going to be a requirement. And obviously there are so many different situations and complexities that will present themselves around that. You can't call out every single case where there's going to be a need for you to step up as a leader, but at least acknowledging a bit more that, hey, you're going to have direct reports and you're going to need to support their development and you're going to need to think about how we can strategically grow this, strategy from just delivering the foundations to iterating on that. So the next time the company pivots and, I don't have the perfect words to form what that should look like, but I think just this paying tribute to there will be complexity, there will be agility required, and these are the things these are the ways in which they're going to look.
Yes.
Yeah.
You said it way better than I did, Renee. Way more politically correct. I feel like I did get on a bit of a rant there about that.
Well,
And
perfect.
what you're pointing to is those hidden expectations, and it's not a set and forget conversation. Put that in the role description. And if it's, you're having a quarterly strategy session with your manager to figure out how you're going to implement things, or if it's a weekly check-in, expectations change. Like you said, right at the beginning of this conversation, we're in these really complex environments. And it's changing sometimes even on a daily basis, depending on what kind of project you're working on. I know I've been on construction projects where you're literally digging holes in the ground and you go, oh, that wasn't in the geotech report, or, oh, okay, we thought it was going to go this way. Turns out that's not going to work. You need to rapidly think of solutions on the spot. So I think really having an open conversation around hidden expectations from the beginning and revisiting that conversation, because I think these things can creep in as projects change, as businesses evolve. And obviously it depends on the kind of organization you're in. I'm sure with something like LanzaJet, where it's still quite a new business, there's things all the time that are coming up versus an organization that's been around for over 100 years in some of your previous workplaces. Well, I'm sure there's lots of dynamics actually, because it's, if it's a live aviation environment, I can imagine it would be similar. So it's changing all of the time. So I think it's a conversation that we need to revisit. Any final thoughts, Renee, on expectations and grumbles from people?
Yeah, well, back to the grumble. I think that's what we land on. It's completely appropriate to grumble when there's change, right? And I say that because I want to normalize the fact that everybody feels uncomfortable when there's change. It doesn't matter if there's a little bit or a lot. But what I want to say and encourage everybody who's listening today is that, don't make that grumble something that perpetuates and something you speak about to a lot of people within your team or within your workplace. I think come home and have a grumble, but then reflect on, hey, we're going through another bout of change and how I support the business to really encompass and make that change and lead with intention. And I think that that's maybe the point. It's that self-reflection piece to say, hey, yes, there is change. I'm a bit annoyed about it because I didn't see it coming. But actually, hey, my manager probably didn't see it coming. Or if they did, they were probably too busy to actually be able to give me that information sooner. There's so much challenge. So try and think about the fact that people have positive intent. People are human, which means they make mistakes, which means they miss things. There is so much complexity in a role, and there's so much expectation on every single level of a business these days that things will be missed, things will be hard to manage. So then how can you step up to the challenge and go, God, that's frustrating. I wish I knew sooner. It is what it is though. So now I'm going to ask questions around how do I prioritize my new workload? How do I look after my team during this change? and just start acknowledging and really thinking about how can you step up as a leader. I'm going to leave
So
it.
great. Awesome. Yeah, I feel like what I really hear in what you're sharing, Renee, is empathy and responsibility. Those are kind of keywords that's stepping out for me. I did learn in our last episode that empathy is one of your strengths. So no surprises there that you're so great in this space. So I can really hear taking that responsibility, whether it's for yourself, where you're at, your team, and being responsible to ask those questions of your manager rather than waiting them come to you. Such a great DM. Thanks for sending it in. If you do have questions for us, anything you want to share, if you're enjoying certain episodes of the podcast, please let us know. That really helps us create more awesome episodes for you. And we love answering your questions. Thanks so much, Renee. It's been another fantastic conversation today.
Thanks, Felicity. Right back at you. Always love it. Bye.
Bye.